So, about several weeks ago, I saw a post that Nick Frost was in a film called Krazy House. And if you don't know who Nick Frost is, well, let me tell you. Nick Frost is honestly one of like the funniest character actors in real life and also like off screen, who just first graced my presence with with one of the best horror comedy films of all time, Shaun of the Dead. If y'all haven't seen it, y'all don't know about it, please check it out. It's one of truly like inspirational films that honestly have made me even more interested in film, more so than anything. And of course, Nick Frost in Hot Fuzz with Simon Pegg, in both those films, it's great. And I saw in an Instagram post about it was from Kevin Smith's Instagram post, and he talked about he made a post about this movie called Krazy House that debuted in his movie theater in New Jersey, and Nick Frost is in it, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll put this movie in my in my watch list, thinking that it's gonna one day I will pull this up and maybe it'll be good, and it was at least a dozen times. By the way, I didn't say the intro. Welcome to Adam's Chase Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here. Mwah. I love that you're here. How are you doing? How's life? How's everything? Good? Great. Let's talk about a movie. So going back, reading this post, it was like ads after ads after ads after ads that I would get for at least like a week or two straight about this film, Krazy House, with a K, because it's crazy. Wow. It's an interesting film. And I thought it looked interesting, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try this out, and I never got around to it until last night when, it was like late at night. It was like 12 o'clock, something like that. It was like pushing 12 o'clock. And I was still up and I wanted to watch something. And I just remembered Krazy House like popping up on my feed all the time, including getting hyped up by Kevin Smith. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's go ahead and let's just go ahead and flip this on. And so I have several things about it. First and foremost, what the movie is about is a film that was directed by Dutch filmmakers Flip van de Kuil and Stefan Haars. They're Dutch filmmakers who have made a lot of like horror comedy, I guess, like in the Netherlands, which is, interesting enough story there. And they made this film that I think made it to Sundance, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, I don't. Going into it, I knew that it was gonna be a sitcom-y kind of like parody of whatever 90s sitcom show that everyone's watched, from like Alf to Friends and like all those classic sitcoms, right? All in the Family. I think that was like the 80s. Family Matters, all that stuff, right? So going into this film, that's all I knew. And so this film, this film starts off at like a regular, like this like kind of regular looking, sitcom, like 80s sitcom, 90s sitcom. And as you go along with the film, the main character, Nick Frost's character, what was the name? Bernie. And the whole family's called the Christians. They're a very, I guess they're just they're clearly evangelical. They love God. They, worship and praise by the Bible and stuff like that. Bible thumping Christians called the Christians. So, the film starts off with just like a regular ass like sitcom family, and then like chaos ensues as the movie progresses with these Russian dudes who just show up knocking on his door, asking like if they can fix up anything in the house, and in typical sitcom fashion, Nick Frost's character essentially like breaks a whole bunch of shit in his kitchen and resorts to calling these Russian dudes who just essentially destroys the entire fucking house looking for a specific thing, clearly looking for something. And this Bible thumping man just slowly and surely breaks his patience. You kind of see it chipped away off his subconscious after a while. And so the whole film doesn't really have a plot. Like that's basically the plot that I described, because the entire third act just completely packs up the entire movie and throws it out the fucking window. Like there are no characters that feel like that feel viable, I guess. And I don't think that was the intention with the film. I think the intention with the film is to have a message about religion, I think, and how, maybe hiding behind religion doesn't really work in dangerous circumstances. I guess if I was to look at this literally, and I got to be honest with you, like, it wasn't that I lost interest with the film. It was just like once I knew that the film was just going to be off the fucking rails, I was just like, okay, like it wasn't. I was checked in. I was still locked in, but after a few points, you just realize you're like, okay, was there a point to this? I don't think so. Whatever. Let's just move on. Like every imagery or every scene, I feel like, oh, is this going to be like some sort of hint with the story? Not really. And it just kept doing that throughout the film. And I remembered reading a couple of things. Maybe it was an article, or I think it was in Kevin Smith's post. I'm pretty sure. I think it was in Kevin Smith's post that I saw that I was like, oh, this is okay. This is interesting. And he had a Q&A at his movie theater, and apparently people really liked it. And I remember this post because he said in the last, like, the end was like just a wild fucking ride. Thunderously applauding at the end, by the audience, which I was like, okay, I want to know how this turns out. And you get to the end, and I mean, I guess I should have done spoiler warnings, and I guess I'm going to do a spoiler warning right now. So, spoilers for y'all. I don't know what I would be spoiling though. Like, that's the thing. It's like, I guess like the last 15 minutes, like it does get kind of crazy, but not crazy in the way that like makes sense and that it feels like it's like rewarding, I guess, because once you get to the end, you just sort of like, you're already on this journey of like surrealistic, like kind of like, setting of, of a sitcom that's like supposed to be wholesome and, you know, family friendly. And it just turns out to be, you know, something batshit crazy that makes this dude just completely abandon his faith to Christianity, I guess. And you know, just starts just, you know, killing people, I guess, which is Nick Frost's character. So yeah, I mean, even looking at like Letterboxd, you know, reviews, yeah, there's a lot of people, and you got to take some of these reviews with a grain of salt, right? Because like a lot of times, like Letterboxd just get like, you know, they, I don't know, they praise films like as like certain films like I just completely disagree to, you know, praise certain films that are just straight up doesn't make any fucking sense at all. And I don't have a movie right now. I am extremely tired. But I've definitely seen takes from reviewers that were just like, what the fuck are you even talking about? But when it comes to Krazy House, these reviews make a whole lot sense. And like I usually do, I look at the reviews after I watch the film, and I see like all of these people just shitting on the fucking movie. And you know, some people really enjoyed it. Some people were like, what the fuck is this? And yeah, there's no like through line with the entire film at all. Like there's not really a premise. There's not really like an inciting thing that happens with any of these characters. It's just these characters just essentially who were like trying to be a wholesome family just turns out to be like, you know, like just really shitty people essentially. And by the way, Alicia Silverstone is in it too. Yes, Alicia Silverstone from Clueless, you know, from or Scooby-Doo 2, Monsters Unleashed. That's also another one. And yeah, I couldn't believe that she was in the fucking movie. You know, and it didn't even make sense for her to like, because like I like her in goofy movies as well. Like she was great in my opinion, she was great in Batman and Robin. I know everybody hated the Joel Schumacher Batman and Robin movie, but I didn't mind it. I just think it's a silly ride. And clearly, like, you know, just have a more sillier take on Batman, you know. But yeah, seeing Alicia Silverstone was because I haven't seen her in much in a whole lot of like films and whatnot or shows. Maybe I have, but like, yeah, I haven't seen her do a lot. And seeing her in this film, it was cool. Like at first I was like, oh my God, what the fuck? When was she in this film? And yeah, I thought that, you know, it was very out of place. And same with Nick Frost's character too. Like he tries to do a rendition of like a southern accent, but it's not southern. It's like it has like some sort of southern twang to it. And he's like speaking through dentures, so it's like a southern twang with like a whistly kind of like, you know, cadence to it. It wasn't bad. It was just a little goofy at first. At first I was like, why? But you know, as you progress especially if you know Nick Frost and like what he does, like from Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz and all those films, Paul even, which was, oh boy, that movie was not great. But yeah, I thought to myself like, okay, I mean, let's just see where this goes. And that was me basically every single scene, even up until the end. I'm like, okay, where does this go? Okay, where does that go? Okay, we're gonna go even crazier. All right, and it just like they tried to be more chaotic, but it just with how much it didn't make any sense, it was hard for me to really follow honestly what was going on. Even though like I was along for the ride, I was in it, I was locked in. I still just didn't understand why everything has to be like jacked up to a 10 when jacking stuff up to a 10 when you have a buildup and like get it earned deserves like the high octane feeling like of like unnerving or exciting or like memorable to really make your third act fucking shine, right? And everything that was sort of like set up to be that just didn't honestly feel like that at all. It felt like it was trying to like go up and 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 up, and then it just kind of fizzled out, and then it tried going up and up and up and up and up, and then it just fizzled out again, and then it just stops. It doesn't go like down. It doesn't like. There's nothing like it just stops because so many stories are clashing all at once, especially like the Russian story, like of these people coming in randomly to just like destroy a fucking home. Why were they there? Well, they're there because the mother of this band of Russians hid a baby in the walls of this dude's home, which we didn't see her do. Like they had a flashback scene of the mom and this dude, who these two Russian people who were just trying to, I guess, escape from the cops. I'm assuming, and in pursuit of that, they hid their kid in some random home's wall, I guess. And then it turns out it wasn't a wall. They hid this baby in an organ, and the baby is mummified. And then because the baby was mummified, they try to, I don't know, like they tried to they tried to redeem themselves by finishing the job of like killing these cops or like standing their ground, and even more chaos ensues because Nick Frost's character then breaks and completely abandons his Christian faith, and then kills these Russian people who was like a family of mob apparently, and then in pursuit of that, Nick Frost, because he went crazy, just lights that mummified baby on fire and plays catch with it with his family. And so a few things. One is the storyline goes all over the place, and sure, like I've seen plenty of stories that go all over the place but still somehow land the third act. This just felt like, I don't know, this just felt like a room with like it felt like a bunch of writers in a room just went like, yeah, but we got to go crazier. Yeah, but what can we do to go even crazier than that? Ooh, let's go even crazier than that. And I just, because it's like, oh, this movie's called Krazy House. We got to go crazy with the K. It felt like it set up to be something probably interesting and just have none of the payoff at all. And that being said, does that mean that I hate these filmmakers? No. Like I'm interested in what story they're trying to tell. I'm sure these Dutch filmmakers really tried their best to make a story that they believe in and that they want to express and show. And I'm all for it, but it's just like, what is it? What is this about? It just feels like it went so random. And even me telling you the ending was like just one part of how fucking random it is. Because like Jesus shows up too and talks to Nick Frost's character. And it was just like, Jesus is everywhere and Jesus is always the answer. And it's just like, yeah, okay. It's like that stereotypical thing of like how Christians in like movies or anywhere else would be like, oh, you just gotta find faith. You just gotta find faith and just trust that God will always love you and things will work out. And it's just like, like we all hear these things, and it's something against like faith, in my opinion. I feel like if you have faith, you believe in your faith, and you feel solace in your faith, and you feel guidance in your faith. That's great. Like I think that's wonderful. This movie does not appreciate that. They're like, no God, no faith, any of that. It's dumb. It's bullshit. Let's just fucking literally throw the baby out with the bathwater, and we're just gonna go scorched earth with this shit, and that's exactly what they did. Did I enjoy it? I enjoyed for what the setup was. Like, I enjoy having like if you know what it felt like. It felt like, I don't know if you guys have seen Late Night with the Devil, but it kind of feels like that. It's not as like supposed to be funny as that at all, but it's a film about like, a late night talk show host who is like crashing in numbers and like has been on the air for years and years and years, kind of like a Dick Cavett, like, Jimmy Carson, is that his name? The Carson the Carson the Carson talk show from way back in the 70s. I can't remember names for some reason, but yeah, it's just kind of like those late night talk show things. And this guy who has a late night talk show, ratings are going down, and he decides to bring in somebody who is possessed. And, of course, like when you do that, chaos ensues, right? And the third act kind of like had that same vein of like, oh, it was trying to one up itself every single scene. And I understand the intent, and I think it was a fun movie overall. I think it had a good payoff, but I imagine that Krazy House is kind of like the flip side of that movie, where like it's the same kind of structure of like setting it up, and like having some scary moments and like having some like flashes and stuff, and go, okay, shit's cooking. All right, let's see where this is going. And then by the third act, you're just like, by the third act of Krazy House, you just go like, what could I be possibly watching that I can easily explain to anyone, which is impossible. And I'm honestly like just not understanding what the fuck is going on, as opposed to like, a movie like Late Night with the Devil. Like, it has a setup, and the ending, for better for worse, like, yeah, it was an ending. It wasn't like it wasn't fantastic, but it was still an engaging little story, and I really enjoyed for even just doing that, and yeah, I mean, like the end for Krazy House, it was just like, it was so. Like, I understand why it was trying to be fucked up, but if, in my opinion, like, if you are trying to be fucked up for fucked up's sake, I don't think you are just, really in it for the story as much as you just want to, like, make like a shock factor film, which, if that is the intent, great. I'm happy for you. God bless. May the force be with you. Inshallah. Do your thing, right? So when I see that, I immediately think to myself, I'm like, okay, well, you can't take this film seriously. However, it felt like with Krazy House, it did try to take itself seriously in a few moments, and then immediately goes back to comedy, but then goes back to being serious, and then it goes back to comedy. And I just didn't know how I felt about it. I was just like, okay, like, I appreciate when people do this. And like I said before, Shaun of the Dead, has nailed, another Nick Frost film has nailed the blend of that comedy, but it didn't try to be serious for serious sake. It will be serious when it needs to be serious, you know, and it is. It does get serious at a time for moments, you know, and then still goes back to comedy. But for Krazy House, it felt like it needed to be crazy, but so crazy enough that it was like hilarious, right? Kind of like, you know, The Substance. I will glaze up and down, and I will still glaze it, but like the shock value was the hilarious part about it because of who these characters are and what they reflect, right? Whereas with a film like Krazy House, it just felt like, no, these are people who we don't really know, just go batshit fucking crazy, you know? And then like these situations are just like so fucking random and so, you know, just out of the fucking, out of nowhere. Yeah, I don't know. There's like even one part where like the daughter, there's like a son, daughter, Bernie, the dad, and Alicia Silverstone, you know, the mom, and the daughter took an interest of this younger Russian dude who was part of that entire mob, you know, the mob family, and they have you know, they have done the premarital sex, you know, the sinnest of all sins, and the daughter becomes pregnant, and then so throughout the movie you're like, okay, where is this going? And then again by the third act, throughout the movie, this girl, the daughter, like always swallows her gum, and then until the end, which we thought was a baby, was just her having gum build up in her tummy, and then she just throws it up, and the entire family, including herself and the Russian dude, treat it like as if it is a real baby, but it's just like a giant gum baby. I like, even me being as stoned as I possibly can. Like, I am just on all the edibles, smoked all the joints. I couldn't even land there. You know what I mean? Like, if I were like just like hand me a keyboard, you know, and Final Draft, I don't think I could even write a script that fucking random. Like, I don't know if I can even do that. Like, I've seen a movie before that was so fucking horrible. It's so vile. It was a Tom Green film called Freddy Got Fingered. And it kind of reminded me of that little bit, where it's just so fucking random and so gross for completely unnecessary reasons other than to just have a reaction in general. And it was just like, fucking, it was just so bad. And this kind of reminded me of that, where I watch it and I'm just like, why am I even watching this? Like, I don't even know why I'm watching this. You know, not all movies can be hits, ladies and gentlemen. You know what I mean? Not everything can be a hit. But, there's going to be films we're going to talk about that's just going to be, uncomfortable, or we didn't like it, or anything like that, right? Now, if the movie interests you and you liked it and you enjoyed it, tell me about it, I'd like to know your thoughts. It's just, for me, it was just so fucking crazy random that I just like, yeah, I don't know if I can I don't know if I can get behind this. It's just fucking random. It's just crazy. So yeah, I think that's basically it with the with the film. Yeah, I mean, I understand, like, if the filmmaker's intent was to just like go balls to the wall, go crazy as possible, I think job well done, right? But even me describing the story from me to you just doesn't like it doesn't feel real and it doesn't even make sense. So it's like almost impossible to spoil this film for you. Although like I did basically mention the ending, but that's not like the entire ending. You know, there's still parts of it that is like, okay, you know. But overall, what I say, it's a forgetful film. I'm interested in what these filmmakers have to say. I'm interested in what these filmmakers have to like. What are they gonna make next? Um, it's an interesting start. However, I'm not sure if this was like up there on my list. Did I have a good time watching it? I had a time. I had a time, but I will watch any movie. I will watch any short film. I'll watch any movie. I will watch any show. It doesn't matter, Like I will watch everything, So it doesn't matter really what I think because I'm gonna watch it anyways. But walking away from it, yeah. I mean, if I were to recommend this, I'd say if you're interested in like sitcom-y kind of like, parody-esque films that just kind of have no real plot or no real direction in terms of like who these characters are and what they do and everything. It's just randomness for randomness sake, and that's basically the film, you know. And quite shockingly too, I would imagine that there would be a lot more review channels who would review a film like this, but there's not really many. There's like maybe 3 or 4 that has, and I mean, like some of them say that they liked it, and then some were just like, this is crazy and random and just not into it," which I understand. Um, so yeah, that's basically Crazy House. Um, if you've seen it, let me know. If you doesn't interest you, you know, I do love glazing up films a lot. So if you do want to watch this film, it is interesting. But yeah, I think that story wise and everything, it felt like it was just like a mixture of like so many random shit that just has no connective tissue at all. It's just like it is just bonkers from beginning to end. Not even from beginning. It was like a slow burn in the beginning, and then once you get to the 45-minute mark, that's when things really start picking up and start like going crazy. Um, but yeah, that's it for Crazy House. Um, there were a couple things I wanted to talk about too, and I'm just looking a little bit. Yeah, I mean, the state of the world and everything going on. I watched a TikTok not too long ago, and I don't really like going on TikTok, and the algorithm is just like all over the place for me. So I'm always like kind of like apprehensive when it comes to going on TikTok. And I remembered watching this TikTok about election conspiracy and how this election could have been you know easily in Kamala's favor, but clearly there was some nonsense happening behind the scenes, which, I mean, Ethan is online, made a great video about this. I watched it this morning. Please check it out. Because I won't do its justice describing it, and it's hard for me to describe it, but like the phenomenon of like watching these TikToks and seeing liberals, do everything that basically the Republicans have been doing for years, and that is just like conspiracy adjacent rhetoric that just has no real ground at all, and they just want to be, contrarian for contrarian's sake, I guess. And it's so frustrating seeing that when clearly we see what the problem is for the election, and it sure as shit ain't like the voters as much as people think that it's the voters. It's clearly the messaging of it all, right? And to see people just point fingers is just so random. Also, like, I've had this thought in my brain for such a long time, and Jesus Christ, that really hurt. Oh my God, I just fucked my ears up. That hurt. I chopped my headphones, and it just ripped off from my head, and it just fucking, ow, that sucked. Shit. What was I saying? Oh, so I've had this realization last night when I was taking a shower. Like one of the many shower thoughts that I have, and I remember thinking about like all the podcasts that I've been watching over the years, and like how different they have changed over the years since I've listened to podcasts all the way back in like 2010. Yeah, 2010, 2009, but really I got into in 2010. And I realized, like, even, of course, like people like Joe Rogan is the most obvious answer, right? And I used to listen to Joe Rogan. I used to watch, not anymore. It's just, it's too, it's really right-wing coded. And I feel like a lot of comedy podcasts and a lot of podcasts in general are going more like, I don't want to say they're going full tilt right-wing, conspiracy manosphere shit, but they do echo the same things as, regular ass Republicans would say all the time. In hiding behind their bigotry and say, oh, a comedy, you can't make jokes anymore. And it's just like, man, I just want to be a bigot. I just want to make fun of marginalized people. And apparently that's just pretty fucked up and mean. When did we become a nation of pussies, dude? It's like, I don't know. I'm so sick of it. And I stopped listening to those podcasts. And I remembered, because of that kind of happening with listen, I love YMH. I love Your Mom's House. If you guys are Your Mom's House fans, you're a mommy. Shout out to all the mommies. That's great. I love you guys. But YMH has definitely changed in the scope of what they do and what they like kind of like, have their banter on when it comes to like, like freaks on the internet or like, batshit crazy clips that they watch, horrible, hilarious, and it feels like nowadays it just feels like a podium for, like grievances of why they don't like people, essentially. And it's kind of like a classist thing. It's like I've heard Tom Segura make fun of like, like he makes fun of like he like there was always like a running joke about like, I don't associate with the poors, and it was funny because, he didn't mean it, and it clearly showed that he didn't mean it, but it feels like especially with Joe Rogan, it feels like now they are becoming the jokes that they make all the time. And I don't know how I feel about it. It's just like the jokes are now very different. They're not funny anymore. And I'm not saying I'm a comedian. I'm not funny at all. I'm strictly fucking serious, bro. You know what I mean? Always. That's why I make fart jokes, and shit like that. That's the style of this podcast. But it all just basically feels like it's changed. Not, I guess, for a lack of, care about like what their audience is, but really about like why they hate the things that they hate, rather than just like poke at the obvious things that, doesn't necessarily make marginalized people the butt of the joke, right? Kind of like the Dave Chappelle effect of like transphobia. It's like you make one transphobic joke that wasn't funny. We all know it wasn't funny, but then you dedicate an entire ass special or like your whole messaging around like how that joke is funny and we're all fucking stupid. And it's just like, yeah, okay, sure, why not? And I moved on from YMH, and I moved on to a little podcast called H3 Podcast. And listen, I love this podcast a lot. I thought Ethan Klein and Hila really had a special thing going on. And what I liked about the show, what I liked about the podcast was that comedy always, like, I mean, it came first, even when Ethan does his thing called like Goblin Mode, where he just goes way off the fucking rails, and he'll say something like, about, the NRA and how there should just be fun stuff that happens to them. Please, YouTube, don't fucking, you ain't gonna look at this. What am I saying? But my thing is that like Ethan and even the rest of the crew really locked in on like pop culture shit that is relevant but funny, and also like crazy enough to just point it out and be like, this is fucking wild and crazy. Let's just dedicate an entire podcast episode about it. And they go on for 3 hours, 4 hours, and they used to do it all the fucking time. And a little known guest, you might have heard of him. He's all right. He's kind of an idiot. Hasan Piker. I'm kidding. No, Hasan Piker gets on the H3 pod, and I never even heard of this dude. I mean, I've seen him like around Young Turk stuff, and I've watched some Young Turk things. My dad is into the Young Turks, and yeah, I thought that it was he had a lot of interesting things to say, and for me and my like whole political like my whole political views and world, I didn't quite realize we're already, I don't want to say radical, but we're already a little more on the leftist side, and I just didn't even know it. And so as I grew up, I started realizing like, oh wait, I'm not like them, but I'm more like these guys. And Hasan was like one of those things in that rotation where I was like, oh, okay, I like what he has to say. And I didn't quite realize that this was a progressive thing or like a leftist thing or whatever, So when I have these, thoughts and all that, like I was like, okay, I like what he has to say. And then, I watch him, I watch Majority Report, I watch a lot. I watch Mike from PA, Sean DeBlack, Denims is also great. A lot of Twitch streamers who cover politics very well. And I appreciate the content that they bring in. But Hasan was like one of those people where I thought like, okay, this was like kind of like a neat thing where like people who are into politics but don't know enough to feel smart about engaging with it at all can finally engage with it. And that's how I felt, a lot of times. And, other streamers have done this as well. And even Ethan has done that. Ethan has really shaped and molded the politics and making the community as open and as engaging as possible so that we can have these conversations and interact and stuff. And that's why I really enjoyed Leftovers, because that show, that was kind of like a supplement to the H3 podcast, was with Hasan and Ethan, talking about political issues and having like conversations that go in the way of like, okay, this is my disagreement. You don't share this same sentiment. Let's talk it through. Let's work this out. And it was great. I thought it was like, a great fucking podcast that like finally it's like, oh my God, like we have a show where it's not like fucking fighting all the time. And I thought that podcast was definitely going to take off, because having these conversations, especially with other like-minded people, can really, really draw a huge line in the sand from people who are, not on board with half of these things, or are on board with these things, but don't want to come across as like super radical or whatever, and they just want to be more center. I think having these conversations are very important, and the conversations that Ethan and Hasan had were, in my opinion, very, very fucking important. And then Israel-Palestine happened. And no thanks to Israel, with the ongoing genocide of Gaza, apparently had fucking warped and destroyed the brains of a lot of people here in America. And this is what really sort of like got me into the stratosphere of politics, and what got me really engaged with it was how little care is a bit aggressive. I think that people just tune out when it comes to things like this, because it's just politics at the end of the day. The genocide and the Palestinian existence, and how fraught it is with all the worst kind of things, the worst kind of atrocities happening to them, is political now. And when I kind of realized that with people who I talk to, and things that I read, and tweets and posts and all this, it kind of just broke me where I was like, oh, so this is a thing that I do actually care about, that doesn't feel political at all. It just feels like a humanitarian thing that I would imagine a lot of people are on board. Turns out there are a lot of people who aren't on board with this, but majority of people don't want this genocide to keep going. It was proven by exit polls in the election, especially this year's election, and so on and so forth. A lot of people have had this feeling that this genocide needs to fucking end, But then on the other side of that same coin are people who, say that Israel should defend themselves and yada yada, which is like, to defend from what? That's just a bit of a silly concept to think that, they have to protect themselves from a made up evil that really doesn't exist, but really exists from within. It's like the phone calls coming from inside the house. That's the shit you need to watch out for. But they don't. A lot of people don't believe in that, and the idea that this dude, Ethan Klein, just fundamentally just 180'd himself and made the podcast, at least for me, not welcoming for people who have the kind of those same sentiments of like, this is a genocidal, horrible catastrophe that needed to end on, October 8th. It needed to end immediately, and it never did, because a lot of people feel like, including Ethan Klein, feels like anti-Semitism is overpowering any, effort to get Palestinian people, protected and get this whole entire genocide ended. But people, especially Ethan Klein, are more worried about the rise in anti-Semitism, which is rising. Yes, anti-Semitism does exist. That does not mean that that Palestinian people have to be the subject of perish because that's justifiable, as opposed to seeing anti-Semitic shit and anti-Semitic hate, spewing all over the fucking internet. And it is true. Like there are things like that do happen, and that's fucking horrible, and nobody should be engaged with it. It's just when you see a genocide, the way that has been going on this far and this long, it's almost impossible to avoid this, right? So much data comes out of this. The World Health Ministry said that it accounted for over 40,000 Palestinians who died in this entire genocidal campaign. And that's, and apparently there's way more from doctors, doctors who have worked in Gaza, who have interviewed, with multiple publications, Guardian, New York Times, even CNN, like all these publications and all these platforms, legacy media, they say that the number is even fucking higher. It's higher. 2 million people living in an open air prison. Yeah, you would imagine that something with this level of devastation requires much thought and requires a lot of understanding. And to be honest with you, it doesn't even require that much understanding, because like you see for what it is, and it's horrible and it's horrifying. So this thing should end, and you look to what the source is, and the source is inflicting this genocide way before October 7th, way before the March of Return in 2018, way before the Intifadas, all the way back to the Nakba and or the catastrophe, right? Zionists just completely and utterly murdering Palestinians in cold blood. It's just it's the worst. It's the worst fucking atrocity, and the history has itself to explain that, right? I don't know. I think that this is a fundamental issue that I feel a lot of people understand, but yet so many people don't understand the breadth of why this is really fucking bad. They just see what the surface level was from October 7th, and people just kind of take that and run with it, which, is kind of understandable from their perspective, who don't know this much about it, right? Because legacy media only shares so much, and they don't share enough, and they clearly just don't care, about the repercussions. At least most of them do. They don't really care. But anyways, going back to Ethan, he just kind of went off overboard, and it just, with him calling everybody anti-Semitic for even having a criticism for Israel, and even having his criticism against like real content creators who want to push for change and give meaningful change, especially giving back the lives of Palestinian people, and helping these causes, and getting the message out there, and getting educated, and pushing forward this understanding that this is fucking horrible, and we got to do something about this. We got to either keep talking about it, we got to push our local representatives, we got to push everybody to discuss it. And then you have somebody who's acting in bad faith, like Ethan, who just doesn't want to talk about that, but instead wants to talk about the rise of anti-Semitism and how that's way more important than the plight of Palestinian people who are currently going through a fucking genocide for over a year now. And this is this is reality. And it hasn't changed. And in fact, it's gotten a lot worse. Northern Gaza has had like hundreds of children killed daily, you know? And it's there's no excuses for that. There's none. And it sucks that, like, you know, what was once a safe community, what was once like, you know, a community where like-minded people like get together and you know, have fun with a podcast that do goofs and gaffs and have fun and like do bits and stuff, but also make sure that the serious moments are the serious moments. Like even transgendered issues. Like H3 would even talk about that as well and express like how important it is, despite all the naysayers wanting to point out like, oh, you're just a shill. You don't believe in this. You're just, too woke or whatever the fuck. And Ethan always pushes against that. And I've always appreciated Ethan for doing that. I don't know why now it's like it's not a place for me to even watch it. It doesn't feel like the H3 podcast that I once knew and I once loved. And yeah, sure, it could be like a fallen fan situation, but I don't think so, because like it's not like I am a fallen fan. I do appreciate what Ethan has done. I enjoyed the content that I've had thus far. Have I been keeping up with H3 since? Not really. I got to be honest. I haven't really been keeping up much with it. But does that mean that, him or the crew or the entire show is just an absolute fucking, horrible, like awful fucking mess? No. I just wish that Ethan is just, he can just ground himself and know that the enemies aren't people who are online, like actually making a difference and getting clipped out of context to be sent to Ethan to show how disingenuous people are, like Hasan, like all these other Twitch streamers, even one of my favorite channels, Boy, with I Did a Thing, like have these moments of just like, yeah, this is crazy. I don't know why he is acting this way. And then would turn around and go, oh, see, like here's another guy who is being completely anti-Semitic and they don't care about what I'm actually going through. It's like, I don't fucking get it. I don't understand what the hate is and why Ethan cannot just take a breath, see for what the entire situation is, and realize how little difference he is making, as opposed to how much of a bigger difference he can make by just wanting an end to the genocide and wanting the end, or wanting a ceasefire in Gaza, and bringing hope back into Palestinian lives. And you can do this while being Jewish. Like there's been plenty of Jewish activists who have spearheaded the entire protests, and even just not far from me in UT, the protests have happened. I think it was maybe last year or earlier this year. It's got to be. Yeah, I think it was earlier this year. I think it was like in spring or something, and that was very important. And I feel like that was a powerful movement and one to be remembered for sure. And yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just gonna finish it off by saying that, like, I don't know where you fall politically. For me, when I discuss these issues, these issues are not something that I feel like, I'm part of like a cool club or some sort of like, special reward or a pat on the back for, wanting a ceasefire, wanting, wanting gender affirming healthcare for trans people, want, even the smallest things that have nothing to do with me, like, abortion or gay marriage or weed legalization or any of these things that are just so obvious to me that I guess is just not obvious to a lot of people. And I feel like I got to do my best, and I want to do my best in having conversations with people, because debate lording your way through all this shit is not going to work. Screaming at people about this is not going to work. Yelling at everyone to, vote for one or vote for the other, or you're an idiot for not voting for one, or you're a fucking idiot for not voting for the other. Like, that does absolutely nothing for anyone at all. And in fact, all it does is push that person who you're talking to be further radicalized or further reactionary, and you won't be able to get a honest and good faith conversation at all, because there are plenty of leftists, there are plenty of liberals who just want to fucking debate their way out of it. Maybe not so much leftists as much as progressives, but like, yeah, just liberals in general are just, they want to debate their way through all of it. And it's fucking silly. You don't need to do that. Republicans do that all the fucking time, and they're fucking idiots about it. They're dumb. They don't need to do that. Nobody needs to debate their way through it. And if you are Republican, that's fine. That's fine. Your existence is fine. It's just listen and let's just engage. That's it. Just listen and engage, and know that, like, there are things to be worried about that is bigger than you. Because remember, we are barely a fucking molecule in the vastness of space. So I'd rather make the time that we have on this planet to care about one another and just treat everybody like they are fucking human beings, despite the fact that, like, there are plenty of people who I don't like, who I don't think are human beings. I still think they should get, good education and healthcare. That's a fucking no-brainer. So, anyways, yeah, I think honest conversations are the best foot forward, and just don't scream at people if they're wrong or you feel like they're wrong, or if there's like a teachable moment. Just be nicer to one another. I know that's a fucking Kamala message, and fuck that. Yeah, who cares? I mean, like, there are certain people who you can talk to who are willing to have the conversation with, and then there are people who just don't want to have that conversation with you. You know exactly who they are. You don't need to talk to them. Who cares about them? Just do your thing, baby. Do your fucking thing. Listen who you want to listen to. Watch who you want to watch. And have these open discussions, have these open conversations that could probably teach you something. It'll probably teach me something. And, it makes it for a better podcast. I'll tell you that much. Instead of some idiot talking about, a satirical horror film that is like, it takes place in the 90s sitcom, talked to from a long-haired, greasy dummy named Adam. Who the fuck cares about that guy? You know what I mean? Anyways. That's been it, ladies and gentlemen. What am I watching next? I think what I'm going to watch next is Smile 2. I was thinking about watching Terrifier 3 because I still have yet to see it, and I have been enjoying the Terrifier series. But I think I'm going to watch Smile 2. I think I'm going to watch Smile 2 because I've heard a few buddies of mine say that it was pretty good. It lives up to the hype. We'll see. And yeah, I hope y'all are staying safe, drinking plenty of water, get some exercise, and yeah, just don't scream at people, and have fun conversations. In the wise words of Garth Brooks, let the conversation begin. Oh God. All right. Anyways, I'll see y'all next time. Okay, bye.